Since we're talking a little bit about family, let's welcome Kathy Buckworth with us today, one of our parenting experts on the show. I'm so excited for you, Kathy.
Thank you.
So we have been talking about this book, I Am So the Boss of You, and this is your latest book, and we know that you do very well with the books, but I just think this one is so funny, but it's so timely, because a lot of parents are in this world that we call child-focused.
Absolutely.
So by child-focused, you know, your children are kind of running the household. This is a real switch from the way things were, say, 30, 40 years ago.
That's right.
Your book is about taking the family back. Taking
control
the boss of your family.
And part of it is, I mean, I worked corporately for quite a long time, and I saw that really there was this model there that was working fairly well. And we look at all the parenting books that are out now, you know, are French moms better, or we should be a tiger mom, you know, all these different things. And I thought really the perfect model in terms of having control has been in front of us all the time. And that same mom who works maybe, you know, at the office, has everything under control, manages this great team, comes home and can't get the 2-year-old to put his boot on in 10 minutes or less. You know, what happened? And the house is a mess, and, you know, someone's missing a hockey game and they can't get dinner on the table. And I think what happens is a lot of the rules and structure that we employ very well at work, we don't take home with us. So while a lot of moms would say, I'm the CEO of my family, I'm like, yeah, but you're a pretty crappy CEO actually, and your business would have been bankrupt years ago because you're not really managing what's going on. So that's what I try to do in the book, is really to try to take back some of that and everything. I don't actually give my kids performance reviews, but I might. So,
but you might. It's always a possibility.
It's always
good
and I have a lot of spreadsheets going on.
Yeah, be on your toes, kids. We actually sent out a quiz to our Cityline viewers based on your book. So this is to know if you're really the CEO or not of your family.
I use it as a little bit of a measure, see what's going on up there.
A little bit of a measure. So we asked them things like this: my social life is when I can fit it in between kids' lessons, home duties, and work commitments. 77% of our viewers said true.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's what happens when you have kids in the house in terms of it's hard to fit that stuff in. What sort of was indicative about that answer to me and what disturbed me a little bit was you came last, right? So it's always coming last. I fit it in where I can. And that speaks to me in terms of not having a great schedule that's going on at home, that always putting the kids' commitments first, always putting other things ahead of really what mom wants to do. And a social life can be anything from working out to just catching up. It's like the analogy at work. We all want our employees to take the vacation. They've done tons of studies that say that employees that take vacations actually perform better at work, but we're not taking a vacation, so to speak, at home for ourselves as the CEO of that company.
Yeah, just cramming in all the activities with no thought as to how, you know, what you need as a family. So another question we put in: I don't enjoy making my kids lunches, but I do it anyway, even though they're old enough to make it themselves. 62% of our viewers said true.
What is that? Like, you know, 62% you don't like, that's bad delegation. That's what that is. That is bad project management.
But can I just say, maybe in defense of some of these parents,
might or might not be you, Tracy?
I don't know, maybe a little bit. I mean, I think I could be a better CEO for sure, but sometimes when you get the kids to help, it's actually more complicated than if you were just to do it yourself.
Well, and that's
don't throw anything at me. Is that okay?
No, that's an okay thing to say, and certainly that's sort of the same thing in a work environment as well. When you think about if you're training a new employee, if you have an intern, etc., sometimes you think, oh, I'll just enter these invoices myself, or I'll just call and, you know, book my own plane, or I'll just do what, like, you know, those are the things that sometimes at work we think, I'll just do it myself. The same thing applies at home. You've got to spend the time to then get them to take on the responsibility of the task.
So proper training is what you're talking about.
I just want to point out, my original supervisor is in the audience. My mom is here today in the back row. So watching.
Was she a good CEO?
She was a good CEO. Well, I turned.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Clearly, you had a really good example there.
But I mean, I think that's a lot of what I talk about is the way I feel that I was raised in terms of what our responsibilities were and the way that we had to take on, I think, a lot of things at home. So I hope that I'm pushing that onto my kids as well.
Good. Okay, here's another question. I or my spouse decide what is for dinner and the kids eat what we serve them.
Yeah, how many said yes to that, Tracy?
74% said true.
See, not bad, right?
That's not bad at all.
That was sort of the basis of my entire last book, which was called Shut Up and Eat, which is really getting the kids, right? Which was really about, you know, mealtime for families can be just as much about logistics as it can be in terms of what you're actually feeding them. And so, I mean, I hear from a lot of moms after that book came out that they make their kids special things. Their kids are too picky. A mom on Twitter last week was saying something like, I said something about feeding my kids baked bean casserole, and a friend of mine said, oh, I wish my kids would eat that. And I'm like, well, just tell them to. Like, what? I don't get it. And they said, well, do they like it? I'm like, I actually don't care. I don't. Like, I really don't care if they like it or not. I'm feeding them.
So how do you get them to eat it? So let's say you've got a 3-year-old and I don't like beans, I don't like the color. What do you say? Okay, well, no dinner tonight?
No dinner tonight. They're not going to starve. Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, and so
I
you're
put
okay
out with the no dinner tonight thing, because I'm okay with the no dinner tonight too. But my husband is not okay with that,
and they're not going to starve. And I use dessert as a bribe. Probably not supposed to do that either, but you know what? It's like, don't use dessert as a bribe, or kids will think that cookies and ice cream is a treat. Well, yeah,
but
you want them to grow up to be an idiot? Of course it's a treat. Like, sorry. But yeah. So we treat it like a treat as well. So some basic rules around that. I talk a lot in the book too. I mean, this is market research, and in the book too, I talk about the fact that we're constantly doing market research around other families and what we see other families doing too. And sometimes we misinterpret trends. How's that? So sometimes what works for another family is not always working for us. So that's an important part of the book too, is to say, I'm not expecting everyone to follow rules per se that go across the board, but it's more about saying, these are the rules that work in my house, these are the policies that I have. And I know you have a question there about how many of you have said, because I said so, to your kids. And it wasn't 100%, so I'm a little disturbed at that. I wanted that to be.
Who hasn't used that?
I know. And I'm thinking sometimes there is a space for saying, because I said so. It's the same thing, again, if I can draw the parallel back to work, where sometimes rules are rules, policies are policies. And I know when my kids were much younger and they used to fight about bedtime, I used to say, well, it's just bedtime. It wasn't my policy per se. It was like, bedtime for you is this. And that's an easier argument to make with them.
Yeah, this is your absolute truth, kid.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Okay.